We are on the air. This is the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. And I'm Dave Capron, and I'm here with my podcast host for the last, going into year 6, for at least 5 years, going into year 6, Angelo. And we are on Christmas Eve Day, December 24th, 2025. And I thought it'd be great to get together, which I'm psyched. You got your new renovated podcast office area there.
Yep. Shout out to Amanda. I was on the road for about 3 weeks and got home, and she had remodeled it's office, art studio, workshop. Yeah, she hammered it. I don't know what I did to deserve that. And I told you she probably wants me out of the kitchen. So
I just think she wants you out of the kitchen, man.
But anyway, yeah, new digs. It's very comfortable. Yeah.
Super cool. Mm-hmm. Looks good.
Yep.
I like the wall there. She kind of accentuated that because there was some yellow there in your side there, but now I get the stone wall.
No, it's institutional green to keep me calm. It's like elementary school green. This is the color my elementary school walls were.
I was thinking Shawshank Redemption, man. You got to start digging out there.
Tunnel out to the mailbox.
Yeah. But hey, I want to start off this is our kind of our special holiday special podcast and celebration of the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. And it's Christmas Eve Day. Last night I had a blast. Got to go out and hang with some of our buddies. I went out with Jeb Boyd, Matt Boyd, and Eric Barnes and their wives, and Matt's daughter Maggie was with us. So my wife was there, Andrea. We had a really awesome dinner last night over in Meredith. It's always super cool to hang out with the crew that we're not at training or something, that just hang out and talk. And of course, skiing came up. Mm-hmm. And yes, one of the 4 Nimrods had to throw a coin on the table. Take a guess who?
I suspect that was probably Matt.
No.
Oh, no.
The big coach. Ever had to.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was talking on one end of the table. All of a sudden, I heard it hit the table. It's a very distinctive clang.
I suspect you all had yours. He probably just wanted to buy y'all drinks anyway.
No, he said, turn to Holly and like, Holly, you're going to have to buy. Turn to his wife.
That tracks.
Oh, man. So we had a great time there. And, we're doing this podcast today, folks. Everyone's starting to listen. We are going to go through some of what's going on in terms of what Angela and I have been doing the last 2 months and kind of chat about and reflect on that with training and snow sports management seminar here in the East. And training was also West and East. And Angela's been to a couple places. I was out at Rocky. I was here in the East. We also just had probably close to, if not the biggest, event for ski and snowboard instructors in the world, probably other than Interski. And I'm waiting for anybody to beat us, but we were somewhere near just under 700 pros at Killington. That was pretty impressive to see that entire crew out there working and on their skiing and their teaching and trying to get better. That's a huge, almost 700.
Yeah. Yeah. People were excited. We had great weather most of the week. I don't know, man. People are hungry for it right now, it seems like. And that's, I was at 6 trainings this fall. Ed staff folks are hungry to get better, understand things more, ski better, ride better. Like there's motivation coming from somewhere. It's really cool. And then Pro Jam was the same deal with all the folks who were there to, kick the season off that way. My group was really fired up. It was really cool.
Yeah, we'll get into some of that in chat, but we've got to thank some folks, man. It's the holiday season, and Hanukkah's just kind of coming to a close. Came to a close on Monday, I think, the 22nd. If I look at the dates of how they celebrate Hanukkah, and Christmas is tomorrow. The New Year's is coming up soon. Christmas holiday week, excuse me. And, we got to thank some of the folks that keep us going here on the podcast. It starts off with Blizzard Technica, the crew over there with Sarah Lauritsen, Christian Avery, Martin Martini, Leslie Baker Brown. That crew has been super supportive to keep the podcast going, to help us out with not just on the podcast, but also getting us on the hill, Angel, with some great boots and skis and ripping it out there. So we definitely love that. And Nick Blaylock over at Nick's Boot Fit. They've been cranking out boots and helping folks get ready to get on the hill. He's been doing my boots for, oh my God, almost 2 decades now. I missed that one time, that little span of time when Greg Hoffman and him went out to Vail for the Western. I was like, oh my God, my boots suck for a while. I needed to fly out there and I didn't. But they're doing a great job of helping us out. And, Miles Cotter Sparrow with Rollerblade, part of the Technica group. And then we're chatting a little bit. Charlie Lindsay at Carve, and we've been playing with some things and hopefully be doing some stuff in the future with Carve. And then, my God, if we couldn't see in the hill, I know we both have 2 different optics that we use out there. I use the Smith goggles and helmet. And thanks a lot to Rob DiMuccio for getting us out there. And then I know you're using Sweep Protection.
Yeah. Developing a relationship with Sweep Protection. John Jay, been generous with product. It's really great. It's high quality. Again, I've never skied in a light colored helmet, and this one's like an off-white. And I get a lot of comments about it. People ask about it. So if you're in the market, check out Sweep Protection helmet and goggle combo. Can't go wrong.
And Rob's got me set up with the new photochromatic lenses. I think they had those last year, and I didn't see them till after. I'm like, oh, I got to get those. So he sent me some of that to test out the season and show out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to see how those things go. And, if they go even half as good as all of this stuff has gone so far, it's pretty amazing. And then Leaky. We both kind of sporting the Leaky poles, which super love those. I love the trigger. Yeah. I do.
Man, it's so, and you walk into locker rooms, and like our pro room at Eastern Academy last week, where we were all booting up, you walk in and it's like it's got to be 95% Leaky poles. Yep. It's just dominating the market for good reason. Their quality, great swing weight, strong. Kind of forget they're in the hand. Yep. The trigger gloves they're beautiful leather, high quality stuff. And Scott Studer and that crew at Leaky are they're on the ball, man. They're generous and enthusiastic and supportive of what we do. So if you're in the market for poles, check out Leaky.
Yep. And Dave Berger, the doctor, our telly buddy,
our patron.
We got to chat about him in terms of he's super big supporter, always there, and love when I get down to PA near Blue Mountain and get to hang out. He's always calling, like, let's go to dinner and we hang out. But he's a super fan on the podcast, and it's super great to put quality stuff out for him, but also the support he gives is pretty awesome.
Well, and I did get to ski with Dave last Wednesday, elective day at Eastern Academy. I didn't have an assignment, so I put my telly gear on and went out with that crew and got to ski with Dave and Karen Delory at the same time. And Keith Rodney was there running the crew. And Karen was recently on the podcast, and that was in large part due to Dave. Like he wanted to hear it. It was terrific. I got comments all week because we were at Killington, which is Karen's stomping grounds, and people all week were coming up like, that was awesome. I said, well, it wasn't us. She's awesome. We're just who we are.
We just get to sit here and ask the questions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's the crew, and that's why I wanted to throw out all these thank yous, and we got a couple more coming because the reason, I hope folks can support some of our supporters to help them out, because they're really helping us give, whether you listen to the podcast for the education or for some listen to the entertainment, and us knuckleheads just, they laugh at us, which is fine.
We might need better forms of entertainment if we're in it, but whatever. To each his own.
But we've had some, thinking of the education, thinking of some of the folks we've had on, just our guests. Thanks to everybody that's supported us when we give them a call or give them an email. Hey, would you come on the podcast? It's been huge. And our national team, of all disciplines, and the alumni of that team have been on. It's just been incredible support from them, and some of the coaches we've had on, and from past coaches we've had. Mr. Rogan is almost a co-host now. Yeah. We're going to have to build him like a podcast room wherever he is now. I think he's over in Colorado, and he's going to be like, so we doing this weekly? We doing this daily? He's going to be up in the game. Yeah. And then Jeb and Matt. Jeb Boyd, Matt Boyd have been on, and Matt's actually been on Unchaperoned, which he loves. He wants to come again unchaperoned without Jeb. And we had Craig Dixon. Mr. Dixon was on. That was the great one. I still question, we've had Mike Hafer on too, and the two of them had the wrestling match, but there's still question of who won. So we're going to have that. It's going to have to be videoed or something. We need to see what goes on.
Well, some things are best just fading into the annals of legend. Maybe we leave it alone. Maybe we leave it alone. Or maybe we get Ellie to kick both of their asses like that.
There you go. She would too, man.
That would be worth putting on the social media.
Yeah. Oh, man. They're not. Yeah, we'll definitely get that. Ellie will kick their butt and drive over them with one of the dump trucks. And then we've had Jeff Krill, super amazing dude, and Scott Anfang with us and for an episode. And the one I have to thank the most is my good buddy, my best bud, Chris Erickson. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was our first guest. You and I did a few podcasts together, and we're like, is anybody listening? And, we're like, how do we get a guest? We want to have a guest. Who can I bribe? Mm-hmm. And, Chris helped us out for that first season, which was so cool. And if you haven't listened, go back. I go back a little bit and listen to some of them. I'm like, oh my God, Angela, what were we doing?
You could probably say that after this one.
But I looked at season 1 and I popped it up here. It was so cool. We had Chris Erickson came on first, which was so awesome that kind of broke the ice for us. I didn't know who I'd ask. I'm like, okay, I got to ask somebody that, can't say no to me. And then we went to Pete Allison. I mean, Pete Allison came on, super cool, the connection. So, I forgot we had Pete on that early back then when we first started the podcast. So that's super cool. He's been very supportive of the podcast. I know I can't believe he pulls stuff and uses it in some of his classes at Penn State. Yeah. He must use it for the things not to do.
Yeah. And Pete, well, I wouldn't blame him, but Pete is one of the unsung heroes that is largely responsible for, I don't think I know because I see it happen. The quality push in our association, the buckling down of things that used to be not as contained in a good way, like assessment process. Yeah. Like when you look at what we're doing right now and you look at the level of quality and scrutiny from an outside, qualified outside observer from one of the largest university systems in the country, if not the world, Penn State, it's Pete pushing and it's showing, it's paying off.
Yeah. I mean, that was what we saw in training this year. I mean, what a difference just from last year, how the staff is on, man, the practice, getting out there literally doing the assessment. Somebody's out there coaching one of the staff members and other staff members scoring where it is in the criteria. How do we get the information we didn't get? How do we clarify information? And that's some of the stuff I know you and I will chat about here soon, but he's definitely pushed it and pushed us to a level of, it's amazing. If we could put an exam from 10 years ago to one of the assessments now and see the clarity of what's going on.
You'd have to put one from each region because they wouldn't look anything alike.
No, I mean, from 10 years ago, it's just buckshot of what's going on. Right. So, just the clarity, the consistency, and like you said, up the game, really up the level of all of us to get us to really look at what do we look for? Are we looking for the same things? We need to look at that criteria, and we'll definitely chat about that later for helping folks prepare. Cause that's part of our prep today is where do they go from now? Where is people going to study? But, some of the other people we had on that year, I couldn't believe when I look back. We had Mr. Lipton early. Yeah. Eric Lipton was on. We got to get Eric back. He loves coming on, and we've been talking about it. So we got to get a hold of him. And Sue Kramer, Coach Kramer was on. We had Michael Rogan, and I looked at the thumbnail, and he still had his COVID hair. It was, oh my God. You got to go back and look at Coach Rogan's COVID hair, man. That was something else. Oh man.
A for effort.
Oh my God. I think we did a 3-parter with Coach because we just kept going on and on. We had Lee Perini and Karen Heringa were on together. Who else do we have? We had Brenna Kelleher came on. And then Brenna helped us see, I think it was season 2. We got Keely Weibel that she brought on, Swiss team. Yeah. Super amazing dude. That was a lot of fun. And then, of course, our biggest episode in history, the only one to come closer to kind of rival those numbers was Ellie. And that is Robin Barnes. And I know we've had people clamoring to have Robin on again. So we're going to have to reach out. I know she's busy, but
be too smart for that. Yeah.
And of course, amazing. We had Troy Battleship Walsh on. Amazing.
Mhm.
I think that was that was probably right after he made the team.
Yeah,
Yep.
it probably was.
That's super cool. And we had Billy Shreve on talking about some rollerblade stuff. And Kevin Jordan was on Persistence, talking about his role. That was his first term in the team. He had gone a few times and how he continued. And we also that season had Matt and Jeb on, I think. Yep. Poor Matt wasn't unchaperoned, though. They were together.
No, he was still on double secret probation. I think.
But yeah, I mean, the podcast is really launched out there with so many of the folks jumping in. We've had Ellen Post Foster on there since then, who's one of our big authors. And that's one of the things we might chat about is looking at the Snow Sports Teaching Manual that everyone has. It's a great resource. She's one of the authors of that with Rob Sogard. That's been a great piece out there. Plus many other things she wrote that we have some of her books we've talked about before. But just a thank you to everybody. As we go into this fun holiday season, get out there skiing. It snowed last night here. I snowed to your place too, right?
We're on a little bit of a warming trend right now, but we had a few weeks worth of snow. Yeah. Southwestern Pennsylvania doing better than Summit County right now.
Yeah, because we get about 8 inches, pretty fluffy. Was super good. So hopefully that'll lead into a really good vacay week. Everybody gearing up and trying to get snow out there. And, that's what leads us into here, the real chat on the podcast after the old thank yous. And the reason we can chat about it now is all that crew before us here. But I wanted to reflect, and I know you did too, on the fall. We've had a huge fall. You've been super busy. We had some amazing training online and offline on snow to get everybody ready for a bunch of stuff. And I wanted to chat not about just the particulars we did in training, but what it'll mean for the members and what they'll see out there and what are the items that we're looking at training that are the same items they should be looking at. Because that's always the thing, how should I study? What do I need to look at? What are they going to ask me at the exams? What am I going to have to coach? And but there was just some cool learning stuff about training that I know you had some thoughts on, just reflecting on, because you've been to 6 trainings with the ed staff and seeing the evolution from last year. And I know you wanted to reflect on that first before we dug in more particular.
Yeah, and I think I even want to back up just a little bit farther because you mentioned the materials. Like what can I look at? I want to point out again, and I've brought this up before, that all the materials that are the PSIA ASI produces are really about doing the job, right? Our conversation in the association is largely skewed toward certification, which I totally understand the reasons why. But it's important to realize that our certification process is based on doing the job on snow with students. So when you look at, manuals as the foundation pieces to put in an orderly way, in an orderly format, the concepts, like what the words mean that you use and how the concepts relate to each other, that build understanding of the sport. Like that's what every manual does. And then you can flip gears from that, look at the national standards and say, okay, well, more, specifically at each level of certification, what am I expected to be able to do at those levels? And that's what's spelled out. And more specifically than that, you can get into the performance guides and say, so with regard to each of these aspects of the job, we'll call those learning outcomes, things that you want to be able to do, right? They're goals. Underneath each of those goals, those learning outcomes are specific, discrete, observable behaviors that either support or are given as examples because they don't support that goal. So you can get down to that granular level and think about the job. You can plan ahead. You can come back after you teach for the day, get into those performance guides and reflect on what you did. Like, oh man, I did do this. Maybe I could have done this option, or I did these 3 things really well. And here they are identified as, successful performance contributors, AKA best practices underneath this particular outcome, so the thoroughness of that content is really next level. And then to realize that it was put together by national task forces, national team, again, with support of Penn State University, like it's bomb proof. It's bomb proof, and that's looking at it as a job prep piece. But again, the real beauty is if you say you want to get this pin or that, it's the same stuff. You don't have to learn or do different stuff to be successful in an exam versus what you do on the Hill. The real difference, I guess the 2 real differences is that you're under scrutiny, and that creates pressure, of course, that's just the name of the game. And the other thing is you have to do it in a shorter time. You get 30 minutes roughly to teach, for example. So, we just taught for a week at Eastern Academy, didn't we? Like we're used to teaching. We can go, I could honestly used another week. If I'd had my group for 2 weeks, I would have been fine. How do you condense that into 30 minutes? Like I know that is a real challenge, but try it, practice, go out and grab people out of the locker room and say, I'm going to try to get through this in 30 minutes. Give me feedback. By the way, here's the same assessment form that I'm going to be evaluated against. I printed one out for each of you. I'm going to teach you this thing. Let's get this out later and tell me what you think where I hit the mark and where I didn't.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. There's a lot of pieces, and I wrote down because I'm curious because you and I haven't chatted like what order do we put it in? We've talked about all the stuff and you put the manuals first, then the standards, which I think is cool. Like we'll look at the educational piece and then look at what you're being the standard in terms of what you have to teach to, or ski to, but look at the tech manual, if you're in your discipline, because it could be the snowboard tech, the tele tech, alpine tech. We tend to, even though we're both in the tele world, just because we do 99% of our stuff in the alpine world, we tend to go to the alpine tech manual, but we get in the adaptive, and then we have cross country, which is in the Nordic. And then, what am I missing? Snowboard. I did them all. Didn't miss anything.
You got them all.
You got the tech manual for your discipline. You got snow sports teaching, which is super cool. And I'm just one person's opinion, but I think that's probably, if not the best, it's closest to being the best manual that PSA Aussie has put out.
It's high quality. Peek inside Ellen Post Foster and Rob Sogard's brains about teaching. They're exceptional teachers.
It's super,
and then
super
you look
good.
At the list of people who reviewed it and contributed. And, Matt Boyd is our teaching task force, national teaching task force chair, gifted educator.
Yep. And then we get the kids manual. Those are the big 3 that we get for our dues money. That you get electronic. You can get paper versions, got to pay for them, but you've got the electronic version as soon as you become a member, pay those dues. And the kids manual written by Mark Aiken and Kevin Jordan. We've had those guys on, and that's a neat piece, and it has great conversational education in there that they wrote. But then I love the little blibs. This I think it's close to 40 or over 40, high performance, high level understanding folks that have their comment of what it takes to be a great coach, great kids coach. And just reading those really can put you in a mindset of what you have to do and how to use the manual and just how to become better.
Yeah. And I did, to your point, I mentioned the manuals first. That's the way my brain thinks though. And I don't want to say that's the only way to do it. And from what I understand, you hear things about how digital natives, Gen Z, Gen Alpha now, millennials, even the younger millennials process information differently than geezers like us. I'm a manual reader. I'm a book reader. You know what I mean? Because I understand, when I see a book like an Alpine technical manual or telemark technical manual or a teaching snow sports manual. In my brain, I said, well, this is it, man. This is PSIA's metaphysics about this topic. So my brain wants to understand. I want to see the sequence that was chosen. I want to see the terms that were used, how they're defined, what module leads to which, and so on and so forth, because I want to understand the way the authors understand it. These are the people who contribute to those technical manuals are the authority in our country. Our national team is our authority, and the alumni that, of course, have been on it. I want to understand it the way they understand it. And then I start to dissect it by looking, okay, national standards. What does this mean then for level 1, 2, 3? What does this mean for kids specialists? Where does that fit in? That kind of thing. But then I'll go even more granular than that and get into the performance guides. I don't know, somebody coming up in a different generation, different era, maybe the performance guides is where they start. Looking at individual discrete behaviors. It's like, in induction versus deduction. Look at discrete behaviors and then go to the more general. I don't know if one's better than another. I personally don't think I would understand that as well if I started with discrete and went to more general. I need to understand the big picture and then drill down.
Yeah. So, you had a really cool thing. You chatted to me. It was either last season, might have been the season before, when I was looking at the performance guides. And I think this relates to the standards and the performance guides, which people only get too confused with the assessment forms, the scorecards, because they only usually look at their level. Like if they're going for level 1, they're looking at the level 1 assessment form. But the performance guide and the standards have all the levels in them. And I was trying to figure out where to put it. And I think I was doing something for level 2 for a prep. And you said, just cut it out. Like, take in the PDF and eliminate the level 1, eliminate the level 3, and just focus on the level 2 versus all of them, where I'd been in my examiner mode. And I'm thinking level 1, then level 2, level 3, because I was trying to understand how we went from 1 to 2, how our standard changed, which makes sense for the examiner. But then when I'm digging in to just level 2, you're like, just use the level 2 part, Dave.
Yeah, right. I mean, they have an overwhelming look, right? Because it's a lot of information. That's nothing to be afraid of. It's just try to understand the structure of it, and then it's simple, because you can just, if you're working on level 2, as you bring up, like, you can just look at those pages.
Yeah. Which was super cool. It was like, just pull that piece out, and that's what you work for. So if you're going to your level 1, just cut out and look at the level 1 performance guide part, because that's what you really need to look at for what you're going to be doing and what's expected. And then do that through the pieces. Now, as a trainer in a whole mountain, you have to have all 3 if you're working with different levels of folks, but focus in on each one when you're working on them, and it can be a good guide. That was super helpful for me to help folks. And simple thing, I kind of, when you said it, I was like, okay, that is so simple. And I didn't think of that. That just shows, like, I was thinking way too.
Well, I mean, it's normal, because, like I said, I agree with you. It's a lot of material to take in all at once. But when you realize the structure of it is by level, it's much easier. And people who are curious, like, what changes from level 1 to 3 are not the concepts, but the verbs. The verbs that get more specific as you get up more toward level 3. And another thing that changes is, like, at level 1. Certification, the expectation is you can address an entire group of people, like identify something common to that group that would help everybody and teach that thing, work with that group to help them improve at that thing. Whereas you move up to level 3, then it's the expectation is you could work with individuals within a group. They may need very different things, and the expectation is by that time in development, you should be able to zero in on needs of everybody in front of you. I mean, now, obviously, if you have 100 people in front of you, like, remember those old bus lessons back in the day? We were teaching, you take these 45 kids and go like that. Yeah, obviously that wouldn't work well with that. But you got a group of 6 or 8 in front of you. Can you identify things that each one needs and deliver that? That's really what changes. And then, of course, as you go from level 1 to 3, the pitch tilts up. the terrain, which is another factor.
But yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And now people we got 3 manuals and they get wound. I got to read all that. It's like, chunk it up is my view. That like pick one chapter, like what interests you. And it's great to sit down and start in the beginning and go through the manual in order. And then they're like, well, which one first? Do I do the tech or the teaching? I mean, I think you should do what interests you first, like something you focused on, something you know you need to work on. And then you'll kind of spider off that. Like if you jump to say MA, and you jump to that chapter in the snow sports teaching, things might hit home like, ooh, to do this, like I didn't understand that tech thing. I don't know what to look at. So then you go to the tech manual and hit a piece there that like things can come together. I wouldn't think it. I mean, linear stuff's nice, but sometimes that can, for a lot of folks, get kind of, in that mode of falling asleep. I don't want them to get too buckshot, which could happen, but you need to get the motivation going is what I'm saying. And, how do you feel on that? Cause linear is great. The manual's written from beginning to end for a reason, but most of our folks jumping into the manuals and going back, especially for level 2 and 3, hopefully have seen them already.
I mean,
at least the cover, maybe they've opened it.
I think what I would recommend is like, I'm going to stick to my guns with reading a manual in its entirety, but do that in June.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go through that June, July, August. Like if it takes you that long to read it all at once so you see the framing of it. That's what frames the concepts for the association. After that, I agree with you. You could use them more as reference pieces, and it's like look at the learning connection diagram. It's everything is contained within the decisions the instructor makes and the behaviors, like the actions that the instructor chooses to do. Because you can decide one thing and do something different. You know that, right? Yeah. Like that's something we do sometimes. But you make a decision and you go carry out this action, this behavior to pull it off. But everything is contained within that concept. So teaching people and tech are separated by space in that diagram. But that, I just want to put this out there. Diagrams are just approximations of reality, right? They're not reality itself. And sometimes we get really rigid and staunch about the way we talk about diagrams and think about diagrams and bent out of shape if something doesn't fit exactly. It's not. Diagrams aren't intended to explain every specific variable and option in the known universe. It's a framework that you can look at and say, okay, I can start to understand teaching this huge sport with all these facets, and I can break it down according to these couple of chunks of information that are in this diagram. And in that sense, after you understand the manuals because you've read through them and you've got it framed in your brain because you did that in the summer, you can approach the manuals the same way, right? I have a specific MA question, so I'm gonna look for that section and read it and see where that takes me. Might take you to YouTube. Hopefully, it takes you out onto the ski hill at some point because you got to look at this stuff in person. If you're really gonna be as good as you can be, it's got to be on the hill with human beings and all the sights and sounds and distractions that are present on the hill when we're actually doing the job. Like, I'm not trying to put down online MA. It's great. I mean, it's so useful, but it's only part of the picture, and it's not the job. Like, right. Unless people are just sending you video and you're giving them MA feedback via email, like but I don't know how many people are doing that. You know what I mean? We're doing the job on snow, so it's got to be done on snow.
Yep. Yeah, well, even on our assessment form, it's kind of we have we have the MA Tech portion that we do in a module, and like level 3 here in the East, we're going to do a call down. But then when you go to Teach Day, everyone goes, "There's no MA today," but you've got to adapt to the students in front of you, especially at level 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Level 2 is the subgroups.
Mm-hmm.
Level 3 is the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So there's MA of what you're teaching
Mm-hmm.
to then do it. Like, but it's built in, like you said, in the teaching section, the MA is part of your coaching. Like, do I go to the next thing I want to do? Do I adapt this to change it to help them? Do I keep it the same? Do I slow it down? Did I pick the right activity? Do I actually have to change the activity?
Mm-hmm.
But all that comes through watching the performance and the physical understanding of and the physical ability of people to at least attempt whatever you have them doing. So yeah, even the way we set it up, we get a lot of technical knowledge out of the MA day,
Mm-hmm.
and that MA section is the module. But the real MA happens in the teach. That are you able to adapt? Are you able to give feedback that is specific and pertains to the people?
Yeah.
Relevant. That's the word I'm looking for.
Relevant. It's got to be
relevant. That's what's right on the assessment form. Is the feedback relevant?
Right. And that's what kills the bringing the canned progression and sticking to your guns with that line of exercises, regardless of what's happening in front of you. Like that whole relevant idea, that concept that is the expectation is where the canned progression runs into trouble in the exam.
Yeah.
You know? It's likely that it's not impossible that somebody could bring something very planned, and just by luck, everybody in the group of your 4 or 5 peers react predictably and do everything that you expected. But that's I don't know how often that happens.
Yeah,
you have to be variable, have variability, and yeah.
So at training, there was a really cool thing that you chatted about. And we've chatted before about it, the old 3x5 cards.
Yeah.
And we all did it. I had them and literally 3x5 cards, now we have our notebooks and stuff. You don't see the 3x5 cards as much, but we had those little, almost like the Rolodex, and we'd have them in our pocket in a Ziploc baggie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. With a couple golf pencils in there. And, but we would write down progressions. Yeah. We'd take like the fan progression, or we'd take 1,000 steps. Then our next step, we had the 3 or 4 part progression. Mm-hmm. And we had all them. We had them for edging and rotary and pressure and balance. Mm-hmm. We had them for short turns, medium turns, bumps, ice, all the different variables we had then. We didn't have our fundamentals back when you and I did it. They were there, but we didn't have them listed. Mm-hmm. And, I look at our new pros coming in, even my training at the Home Hill Forum, most mountains, very linear, very progression oriented. They don't have the experience of any teaching yet of skiing or snowboarding in general. So we've got to give them something. And our level 1 assessment is kind of on a progression type mode. And I'm thinking, as we move to level 2 and 3, you've talked about, and I'll let you talk more about it, we move to versus a progression, adapting to what's in front of us. But I would think you'd say, starting your process, even if you're going to level 2 and 3, you already have your level 1. The 3x5 card's okay as a starting point to then go, this is it, but is this working? Where do I make the changes now? Which is your cool little, you were talking about, it was a lesson plan, a class that I wanted you to chat about today.
Yeah.
That the 3x5 card almost shoots into that. Your 3 to 4 part progression, all of a sudden we'll have lines off it. Yeah. To different options, which I think after this podcast, when Ellen Post Foster listened to this section, this was maybe what she was talking about last year when we were chatting about, don't worry about till you get down to that point till you get there. And she's like, well, I hope you have some options when you get there.
Well, you have to have options. Right.
But don't you think people still need to kind of have that 3 to 5 part progression, but then you evolve it to level 2 and 3 by have multiple options that you may not get past part 1, and those options, it might take you weeks, as you said, or months to get to part 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah. And first of all, I think I probably still have my 3x5 note cards, but they're memorized at this point.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I just don't need to pull them out of my pocket anymore. And I think that's a great way to develop early on and in your role as a snow sports instructor, you know. And if I were a training manager now, I think the way I would handle that is make sure that my training staff gets the new folks able to see a particular skill deficit. What does it look like when somebody needs to turn their legs more than their upper body? Like what do you see when somebody comes down towards you and that's not happening as much as you want it to? What do you see when somebody inclines without making angles? Like first of all, what does it look like, right? What does it look like when somebody's not managing pressures? What will I see? You might see somebody coming at you very straight-legged. You might see somebody coming at you very, very crouched over, and they never stand up. So if new people can align what they're seeing with particular skill deficit, then I think the job of a training staff is to say, well, here are 2 or 3 options, exercise-wise, drill-wise, task-wise, that you may select from when you see this deficit happen, you know. And that's really, I think, the expectation at level 1 teaching exam, because the relevance expectation is still there. You still need to adapt to people in front of you. But if you watch your group ski and say they're all tippy and they're not making angles, so you go down this road of developing angles that start closer to the snow in the lower leg, and it's working for all but one, can you say, well, I'm going to get that other 3x5 note card out of the baggie that's related to inclination and angulation, and Dave, why don't you try this one now? And then you can recognize what's going on in front of you. You can adapt with a relevant activity to try to get you to make angles below your pelvis, right? I still think that has a place for sure. And then, like you say, what happens is, like at level 2, in my mind, and level 3, you'd take every note card in your stack, and it might be that thick by that point, lay them out on a table, and then start drawing lines from one to another on how they might relate. It's very much like that spider web idea that, you know, you go from this to that because this is what's relevant for this person. You can think of all that. I mean, if you have a mental Rolodex or your cognitive file cabinet, things are still filed alphabetically in my brain, but my ability and your ability to select from this folder and then jump ahead to the M's and grab something out of this folder and then down to the R's and the T's out of this folder and take those ideas, because you've got 4 people in front of you with 4 different needs. It gets a lot smoother and seamless as you develop. But I think that foundation of processing is always there. I don't want to disparage that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Because I still have it in my brain, man. I go to the bumps and I have those little progressions. Okay, I got some folks I know I got to get the legs to turn separate. It's pretty hard if you don't have a short turn. Pretty hard to make a short turn without some separation. Got to have some ability to absorb some stuff. So I have that Rolodex of my 3x5 cards, but then I have so many of those offshoots of, like, I've seen 18 different things when I do this one activity with folks. So which of the 18 am I going to get? And then, well, this one's doing that. This one's doing that. But it all comes off of that foundation I had that I needed to list out. I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And then it was funny, you know, you did that for a while, and I guarantee you had this. You go through it and then you just get used to, like, I'm doing the 5 steps and I got to go to step 4 now because I only got 15 minutes left. And you watch the folks doing it and you're like, why did I do that? Like, they can't do it. They weren't good enough at the other part. I should have just stayed there and had them do it again. So we almost taught ourselves with people's performance going, that sucked. Like, and it sucked because I made them do something they shouldn't have done yet.
They did what I told them to do. Yeah,
exactly.
How many times has that happened? I have so many. I have thousands of apologies to give for the past 35 years of making people ski worse. But then, you know, you start to, and this I don't want to also. I also don't want to end this segment thinking, like, sending the message that I think it happens this discreetly either, because you start to learn things, and you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but you start to realize that, like, wow, these people all have very different things going on. However, I think I can solve about 85% of this by spending a second and a half longer in turn transition. Yeah. And you know, somebody's got a rotary thing happening here and somebody else got an edging thing going on here. And by getting them into that part of the turn where you're mostly, you know, you're as 50-50 as you're going to get, it's almost like a reset button. If you can get the body aligned purposefully in transition, some of those other problems start to take care of themselves. Similarly with a pole plant, you know, and like I was working, you and I were talking before we signed on here. I was playing around with different locations in the turn where I wanted my lead change to occur last week on tellies. And I remembered, you brought up Ellen a couple of times. I remembered something we did with Ellen at National Academy a few years back with poles, where she had us doing 2 pole plants, like 1 pole plant as you entered the turn, and then another one with the same hand before you got the fall line. So you essentially had 2 pole plants in the initiation part of the turn, and it was to lengthen out that part of the turn. I was playing with lead change variation, and so went through my Rolodex and said, I wonder how that thing Ellen did would work with this. And I did what I did and saw what I saw. And, I just want to point that out, that it's not as simple as discretely going through items A through J in order. Even if they are relevant to skill, because as you develop a keener eye, you start to see more things like that are nuanced, that are like, oh, well, all right, yeah, turn transition could help all these. And then it just becomes a matter of refining a little bit for an individual, you know, so that sort of development happens too.
And that leads me right into my bias of MA. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's funny because I do a lot of the MA stuff. Chris and I do it together, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're the MA specialist." I'm like, no, I'm just biased that like I can't coach effectively if I can't do MA. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're saying here. Like if you can't, and it doesn't have to be at the highest level. I mean, wedge turns, like, can you notice some things, you know, mm-hmm. simple things of, you know, we're looking at trying to see if both feet are turning, both feet and legs are turning. Mm-hmm. Are they turning the same amount? So, you know, I look at things of, does the wedge stay a similar size? If it doesn't, is it because they're turning 1 foot more than the other? Or was it because of one of the other fundamentals they weren't able to release? Could be inclination, angulation, just a little roll in the feet. Could be some leg length change. Could be all of them. But like like you said, like which is the one that's really holding them up? Mm-hmm. But without that MA skill, mm-hmm. like teaching is very hard to be relevant and specific to the folks in front of you. Mm-hmm. In the physical realm, especially. And then also, I mean, this is one you don't see, but this comes from that whole first part of the teaching, the assessment, you know, getting their motivations. You know, a lot of it comes from you kind of alluded to it. The more we find out about who we're skiing with, the more we understand what they've already learned, what they're thinking when they're skiing, maybe a couple things their last coach said to them. Mm-hmm. It's in their head. We can help those close confusers, or, you know, I could have one person, like my group this past week, I could have Wally thinking about one thing from what he got on the Wednesday optional. If he went out on the Wednesday optional, and I could have someone else that had a different view from a different optional they went to on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And no one and we always ask, you know, hey, what'd you do yesterday afternoon? Some take a nap, mm-hmm. some go out to lunch, but then a lot of our members go to the Wednesday optionals, mm-hmm. and they get to go with the team members. They might do stuff with exam prep. So some of the activities, and it's interesting, like when you watch them ski, like what's their thought in their head? If I don't know what they're trying to do, mm-hmm. it's hard to then give MA. So it's that part, but also communicating, connecting with the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I immediately start thinking about like folks who don't know what they're working on. They just want you to make them better. Like, right. Better at what? Like what bums you out about things when things happen on the hill that bum you out? What are they? Like, I need you to participate in this a little bit, you know, and because I don't want to just make you better. I have no idea what you want to be good at. Yeah. But so digging down and not being satisfied until you have that piece, or at least you're moving in a direction. And then somebody's understanding is very important. Like when you were talking about that, it immediately made me think of that, like my typical experience when I walk into any kind of a shop. And I'm going to put it out there. I don't like going into retail shops. I don't like ski shops that much. I don't like skateboard shops. I don't like bike shops at all. Because when you walk in there, like my experience, I must just look like a complete, like I'm incapable of anything. Because you start getting a lecture from the ground up. I've been doing all three of those things for a long time. I have ideas and you know, and I'm going to put in a plug right now for Pro Boot in Ludlow, Vermont, because I walked in and I had some skis that needed some love, and the people downstairs in the tuning area, what can we help you with? And I had an HRC with me, and I said, I want a thumbprint chevron on this, 3 degrees on this. And it's just because they asked and I knew what I wanted, I was able to have that conversation. But more often than not, you walk in and it's like you're getting the generic Bobo speech right out of the gate. Yep. You know, and that we can't, and as teachers, we can't be satisfied with that right out of the gate. You got to figure out what people want to get better at. And like, even if they've never skied or snowboarded before, most people have done something. So if you can learn that they do yoga, you can learn that they golf, whatever it is, and start to figure out so when you do yoga, do you have any poses, any postures that are really hard for you? Well, yeah, downward dog. Where does it pull? Where are you tight? And then you can start to understand how that might present on skis or a snowboard. You know, you have to have that. You have to get that information and then react to what's happening in front of you. And to your point, MA, I mean, if you're not looking at what they're doing, what are you going to say next?
Right.
MA is constant. And at this point, right, can you even ride up the chair without doing an MA on everybody who is on the hill underneath you at that time? Like every time my eyes glance to somebody, something about their stance is registering in my brain. Like it's just, and now nobody's going to want to ski under me at home. But I mean, that's just a fact, but I'm doing it to myself too. Like it's just what you do.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely happened. Well, you think about last week, we were at Killington for Summit Academy, Eastern Academy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, what was there? There was like 16 team members, Alpine team members, at least 1 or 2. Donovan was there.
Florian was there.
Yep. So we had a couple snowboard team members. I'm not sure if
Keith was there.
Keith was there. Yep.
Telly.
Keith was there for a day or two. Mm-hmm. So we had Telly too. So there's a bunch. Mm-hmm. Then I don't know how many Ed staff members. Oh my God. You know, Eastern Ed staff members.
Lots.
They had to be, I don't know, 60, 50, 60.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I know I wasn't looking. I just was like, don't look at the chairs when I'm coming down the hill. I'm like, I can feel it, man. There's eyes all up at the chair on you, you know, and most of the places we were skiing, there was some spots we weren't under the lift, but I mean, Superstar, coming down under the Snowden lift on the bubble, over at Snowshed. I mean, everywhere there's a lift, and we had limited terrain. So there's a couple other trails, but those were some of the main drags. I mean, how did you not get out from under the Snowden bubble when you were skiing over there?
No, and I looked to see who was on every single chair watching me.
Yeah. But you do, when we're sitting on the chair, we're doing the same thing, and we're looking at the other staff members, seeing how they're moving. And a lot of it's looking at, you know, good skiing to like, okay, this is what we're seeing and what are some of the other folks doing? And then we see some of our crew. I was watching some of my dev team members were out there. They were in the Summit Academy and they were skiing with some of the team, and they were skiing with George and a few others. And then we had a bunch of folks that are looking for the dev team. They've been to the dev team trout before, looking again in a bunch of the groups. Plus we had just some other folks I know. I mean, everybody's looking all the time.
Everybody's looking. Get over it. It's what we do. We have a thing called movement analysis. Like, we sell events on it. Everybody's watching you all the time.
Yeah.
Move past.
Oh my God. Right? It's so cool. Unbelievable. But it is super important that And I hope, I mean, we can geek out on it, which we should, but I love that you put that there to say, like, we got to go do it. Because, I do a lot of video analysis. We do the off snow thing, Chris and I in the fall. I did a session last week at Eastern Academy, Summit Academy, Wednesday afternoon. Had Sue Kramer, Coach Kramer was there with me, which was kind of cool. So I could pull her in for stuff. And whenever I didn't know the answer, I just asked Sue. But you need those times to be able to see things, see good skiing, chat about it. But then you can't stop there. You've got to go out. And I think where it's kind of missed sometimes, we go out and practice our teaching. And yeah, go out and practice your teaching, but practice your MA to get your teaching better while you're teaching. Like, what are they doing? Slow down, figure it out, and do it real life, man. Why did you adapt it this way?
And I last week attended a general membership meeting, and I made this point. I don't have the context really to frame this point. It was a conversation in an Eastern region general membership meeting that was held at Eastern Academy. And it was about people moving through the cert process and how long that takes and how many people are encouraged to do it their first year, their second year, by their snow sports school, by themselves, whatever. It was some conversation in there. But the point I made was, like, there's such a thing as developing too fast, and I know all the forces pushing people toward wanting that pin. And some of it is external, like attorneys love it when everybody's certified, I would imagine. Just because attorneys like it doesn't mean you're good at teaching it or seeing it like that. It's one facet of what our industry folks deal with. I know that safety people love it when people are pushed through a cert program. I totally get that. I know managers probably love to be able to advertise that, X percentage of our staff, hopefully it's 100 is certified, but are people rushing through it? And the reason I ask the question is because of the evidence of how uncomfortable so many people are with MA. Yeah. And you do these MA sessions. You've done them regularly for years. And I imagine you have put at least hundreds of people through them, if not thousands. Oh, yeah. I'll ask you point blank. Do you see folks in those online MA sessions that are asking questions that really they should probably already know the answers to because that's the color of their pin? Yes. And I want to frame that. I'm not saying that to put people down. I'm using that as a piece of evidence that we may try to get through the cert process too quickly, because if I'm wearing a particular color pin, but am unable to do movement analysis on people skiing or riding in that zone, there's an issue there. What's the issue? And I'm saying that developing too quickly could be part of that.
Yep.
Because we also, the internal motivation, like I want the pin too, because I want to fit in with the crew in the locker room and on the hill. I get it all. I'm not trying to put any of it down. I'm just asking questions about our, cause I think like a teacher. And when I see people struggle with MA, even at levels lower than what their certification level, their cert level is, like there's an issue there. What is that problem?
Yep. And we see it. And it's one of the things I wanted to chat about of, making it revolves around making training fun and not just a job to get the pin. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all want to get the pin. As you said, I did. I remember back then. I haven't forgotten it. And
I want more pins.
Yeah. How many pins can we get?
I want all the pins.
But how can we make it fun? And you should look at training as an exploration of how you're gaining. Like I tried to look at it and still do, of the better I get, the more fun I have with who I'm skiing with. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I'm able to make a change quicker for them, and I don't do it, but can I set up an environment because I saw something in their skiing, that I saw something they're doing? I'm like, okay, they're doing this. Can I set it up so that it'll be easy for them to feel that their legs are turning underneath? Mm-hmm. What is a different way than pivot slips? Mm-hmm. Like I try every way, every shape and form to create the separation of our upper and lower body, not just in the rotational form, but in when we think of inclination angulation as it moves up from the feet to have looseness in the hip socket, other than pivot slips, because everybody, and it's not wrong, and they shouldn't like all of a sudden not do pivot slips. But for me, I challenge myself to find ways, because if pivot slips were as good as we think they are, everybody could do it in a day. I mean, that's the way I think. So I'm like, so I don't want everybody out there to get on me like, Capron, we still need people to do pivot slips. And I agree.
For the record, Dave Capron said nobody should do pivot slips ever again.
Oh my God, I'm going to be in so much trouble.
We have done our last pivot slip.
But when it comes to leg rotation and the separation of, the legs turn more than the upper body fundamental, we know 99.9999% of the time, everybody will pick pivot slips. And there are some other things you can do, even if it's stepping around in a J turn, independent leg action to step one, then the other, that we start right at level one. So I try to think of some of those things just from like you talk about, that we move in a certain way. How can I use how we walk, how we run, how we move to get us to do those same things on snow versus just a pivot slip? And I would love people to use a lot of their imagination and simple things like that to try to get activities versus just pivot slip. Because that's what happens. So it's, how do we, and yes, and this relates back, I want kind of a rant there, but it relates back to, that what you said, like take your time, like, and it's not like we're saying, hey, you need to take 10 years. We want you to take 2 years off, but can you put the time in? I mean, it does make a difference. I know I was super lucky. Thank God to my family, my wife, letting me teach full time when we were making about, $475 my first year. And my God, we went to full time. I think I was making $975. Just got full time the year after when I got out of college, and like $975 an hour. Teaching 3 to 4 hours a day on average, maybe 5. Not a lot of money when luckily gas wasn't $3 a gallon. But I was on the hill every day. And if you're not on the hill every day to train every day or to coach every day, what are the hours you're able to put in? And I do think folks are rushing and missing pieces, and then they get frustrated because they're trying to achieve goals in a certain amount of time that they're putting an expectation on themselves that's difficult. If you're not on snow 5 to 7 days a week, getting that experience of teaching and skiing, it's going to be hard. I mean, think of the number of hours you get to put on telly. Like, you've made time. You made time even during Eastern Academy last week to get some time during the week, even if it was a half a day. The week before that, you did a day that week, the 2 weeks before, when we were over at management seminar and training, you got a day, which I remember you after you did the day, you're like, oh my God, I'm not sure I should have done it. I'm sore today.
Yeah, that was a lot of telly. And the week in between there, I telly 2 days at Eastern kids examiners training too. So I'm with permission. I'm a member of our children's examining staff. I was hired in that role on Alpine skis. Spoke with my coach, Bonnie, and I said, I have this goal. Is it okay with you if I telly? And she gave me that permission, to her credit. I appreciate it. But you have to make time, And to your point, things that are foundational to skiing, like what you were really talking about there, I think, with MA and tech understanding, is things that are foundational to how we move with ski or snowboard gear on our feet, and our fundamental statements, the PSIA, ASI technical fundamental statements have mixed language in them. There's body performance stuff, there's gear performance stuff in there. So can you go a layer below that and look at what's foundational? And, for example, bipedalism, how we walk, what happens with a human body when it walks in a straight line? And so when we had rainy days at Eastern Academy last week, and we were on wind hold and all that jazz, the stuff we were doing inside was relative to, well, how do we walk? And this is no joke. I had people in my group that I had to say, put your phone down, because they were walking with holding their phone with both hands like this and walking trying to figure out how they walk without an arm swing. And I said, look, when we crawled out of the mud, 1.8 million years ago, we weren't holding, so put that cell phone down and let your arms swing. Because we don't spend time, I don't think, most people, dorks like me that taught biology might, but like most people don't spend a lot of time analyzing their walking gait, but we're wired to move in a particular way. And then when you put any sort of snow sport gear on that walking biped, it's going to alter the gait a little bit. And some more than others. Cross-country skis the least, although there are foundational differences between cross-country skiing and walking and running. We can talk about those if you want, all the way up to snowboarding, which I think is the most different from walking because you're turned 90 degrees. You'd still take a step with each foot. Like the whole twist fundamental is about articulating the feet. Like when we walk in a straight line, it's still present, but it's most different on a snowboard. So do you understand as a movement coach, I'm going to channel Ned Crossley, Eastern Alpine examiner who worked at West Point civilian gymnastics coach for, I think, 45 years. The guy knows how people move. He says we are movement coaches, and I fully agree with Ned on that. Do you understand how the body is designed to move? That's got to be step one, right? You also brought up a point that made me remember something I did with my group. I had a level 2 alpine ski prep group. So our focus was skiing at the level 2 standard. And what I wanted to do for that group on Monday was frame what level 2 certification covers. And I mean, terrain-wise, what that means, because I had a whole bunch of people down from where I live in the southern tier of Pennsylvania, and a blue run at a southern Pennsylvania resort can be very, very different from a blue run at Killington, and very, very different from a blue run at A-Basin, and very, very different from a blue run at Big Sky. But a silver pin in our system covers all that terrain. So we went out and just looked at terrain for starters. As we found green, which everybody was cool with. We found the easiest blue terrain we could find at Killington. And then we gradually worked up to the steepest blue. And I stopped them at one point on the hill and I said, a silver pin makes this fair game. Like you could teach on this. And watch some of these skiers, because there were some, I'm assuming they were local to Killington. There were some good skiers. They were good, like solid intermediate skiers, comfortable on anything blue. And I would suspect some of the blacks at Killington. I said, that pin means that this person right here coming down at us could walk into the snow sports school and buy a lesson, and you would have to make that person better. Do you feel like you could do that? So that framing is important. And then lastly, what you made me think of with these different activities you can choose, you mentioned the pivot slip, which is a favorite of mine, a favorite go-to. But there are a gazillion things you could pick to isolate those. You were talking about upper lower body separation. And I think, a developing instructor would do well by him or herself to try to understand the application of those tasks, because you take a pivot slip as such, and it could be a stupid human trick designed for an exam. Or you could think of it as a necessary technique to get yourself down a super slick, narrow chute, because you just don't have enough room to make a turn, or you can't get enough purchase on the snow. So this is your way out of that pickle, right? Skidded turns are seen as like inferior by many people, as inferior to a carved turn. But understanding skidded turns as a tactic for speed management on ice, it puts a whole new twist on it. And so I'm bringing that up because I think that's part of the reason that those tasks get pigeonholed, and then we start to only select a certain handful, and we treat them like they're exam tasks, but really they all have application out on the hill somewhere. And as a level 2, especially a level 3 certified instructor who could teach, presumably on any terrain in this country, could be called to make any skier better on any terrain in this country. If you get to the top of Lenin and Stalin at Big Sky, and it's a frozen coral reef, do you have some of those activities in mind that's going to help you get these students of yours safely down to that access road? Because that's what those tasks are for. And so that all falls in my brain under technical understanding of the sport. I don't know if Jeb mentioned this. We've been talking a lot about sport IQ recently. How high is your skiing and snowboarding IQ? You think of somebody like, Michael Jordan basketball or Tiger Woods golf. Like they're the line between them and the sport is like kind of not even there anymore. Like when you're at that level and you're that good, you kind of are the sport. It's like our team is our standard. There's no line between the manual and the national team. Like they are the things they're doing and talking about are going to be they are the manual. They are the standard. And I bring that up because you can take that same kind of thinking into your role as an instructor. Like, yes, we are doing pivot slips because later on we're going up into that chute that you want to ski, and you may need this as a tactic to get down. And then MA takes on a whole different meaning when you start thinking about applicability to different situations on the hill.
Yep. And that leads me into the message I'm going to be putting out this year. We have a development team, an Alpine development team tryout in March at Waterville. And I always love to think about, we are always thinking about how we can challenge them to find out what they can do in all 3 triangles. Skiing, the tech triangle, which we go skiing, but then we go, there's MA in there. There's technical knowledge in there. Then we go people skills. Then we go to the teaching skills. We got those 3, and then how they make the decisions. Everything revolves around that learning connection. We got to find out stuff about all that. But there's some fun ways you can do that. And for me, there will be some focus on dirt and the duration, the intensity, rate, and timing of things that will relate to those things you're saying, like your technical knowledge, your ski teaching IQ, your skier IQ of how you understand situations. What are you going to do with the ski? The rate that it might have to tip, is it going to be that perfect? Has to tip at the same rate all the way around. So my car view and it tells me I'm awesome with a ski IQ of 158. Or does it need to, like you said, you got to pivot at some point of the turn. Maybe you got to pivot the ski the entire from 180 one direction to the other. Maybe the rate of movements change. So there will definitely be coaching at the dev team tryout that will highlight in some way that they have to focus on that ski IQ to be able to adapt the duration, intensity, rate, and timing of movements, not just teach perfect movements. And then the caveat for the teaching also comes a lot from discussions with you and others, especially you, of reflection. And I need a little swig of water there. Is that whole part of reflection doesn't happen. It's listed at the end of the teaching cycle, but it doesn't always happen there. And it's not just the ability to reflect and help students understand their performance and reflect on it. It's also that optimized movement, practice time, and terrain usage. And I didn't say explore, experiment, play, but that is the fundamental when you're talking about optimized movement, practice time, and terrain usage. I think everyone thinks that when you come up with play, experiment, play, it's something cosmic. It has to be a game. It has to be, but it's really how you use the terrain, how you utilize it in a good way, experiment with it in terms of, do you have to adapt, change the duration, intensity, rate, and timing of your application of fundamentals? Or are you thinking about the ski, what I need the ski to do in the snow in its duration of rotation, its duration of tipping, its duration of, maybe it has to come off the snow. There are some options to make the ski come off the snow, but which could be part of the teaching thing. Like, how am I using the pressure and the management in the vertical zone? And hop turns could be used to display and show how you manage pressure coming off the snow and landing on the snow. Mm-hmm. And how the legs work. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a part.
Yeah.
Can't give them all the details now, but they better get ready for that.
No. I think a great way to practice that, if I'm reading between the lines, like, there's a belief out there, and you know this, that like there's a right way to do this, and
right.
I know you wanted to talk a little bit about relevance at training and how that trickles through the rest of the association. Well, here's one, like, at Rocky Mountain training, we did the mirroring and the mimicry session that I stole from the Czechoslovakians at the Finland Interski. But the debrief on that session in particular, when you're given the task of, Dave, I want you to follow this person down the hill, medium radius turns, and your job, Dave, as the follower, so the job in the front is to be predictable. Your job, Dave, is to position your body parts in space exactly where your leader's body parts are. So based on your physique, your proportions of leg length to torso and all that other stuff, you're going to be making these micro adjustments to get your body to look exactly like the person in front of you. And then at the bottom, the debrief isn't, well, how are you going to make that person in front of you better? It's how was that different from what you normally do, Dave? And can you think of a situation or two where you may want to ski more like that person because it would be better for the outcome you're trying to get in this terrain, for example, and thinking like that for somebody coming to a dev team tryout where the expectation is they can tweak and adjust these little things rather than preparing for that tryout thinking like, I need to be able to detect every possible error on this mountain. I mean, that's one way to do it. And certainly there are efficiencies that you want to help people adjust, but can you go out and ski with people who are pretty good at it, even though they might be doing it a little bit differently than you? Figure out how specifically it's different, how specifically that makes your skis behave differently, and when you might choose on purpose to do that because you're at this point trying to add to your breadth and depth rather than just sit around and be able to pick out everything that's wrong on the ski hill. Like that's how I would prepare. And by doing it that way, by following somebody and making those adjustments, you're playing around with where things happen in space. So the duration of your movements will be different. The intensity of some movements may be different. The rate and the timing of things are going to change by following, but flipping the script on the debrief from, oh, Dave, you were doing this and you shouldn't do that because you're a bad person now because you're moving up a little bit in your turn. Maybe you were moving up a little bit in your turn because your knees are hella sore from the last 4 days. That's giving you 2 more hours of longevity on the hill because you're skiing in 6 inches of mank. Might be completely intentional and a very, very good tactic. But our mindset very often goes toward, oh, I got to fix Dave because he's popping up. Well, if Dave's not popping up, he needs to go in because his knees are sore. You know what I mean? Like there's all that.
Yeah. Think different, man. Get ready to coach versus fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love to fix, and then as soon as we fix, my personal view, as soon as we start fixing, which is nothing wrong with fixing certain things, but if that's all we do is fix, we never get into that ability to explore, experiment, and play and really optimize movement to be in different situations, different terrain. Yeah. I mean, we talked early this season with Michael, Mr. Rogan, about, different snow surfaces and how he was talking about his reflection and visualization of what it would feel like, what he had to do different to ski some of that snow. And it wasn't all what we would think of as perfect movement pattern. So it's definitely, I want something that will challenge us to coach and teach. And like you said, let us look at someone else might be moving a little different, but are they getting it done? And are they getting it done for a certain reason? And I think it plays into, without saying, hey, you're going to have a people skill. We're always got people skills in there. But as you start working with folks and start helping them relate and understand what they're doing, and everybody exploring with each other's movements, you get into that managing the group dynamic and trying to get everybody involved. So you get some two-way communication. So I think it'll really create a good environment.
I think, you're making me think now that we talked about this before, this idea of intellectual curiosity, intellectual humility. Like these are, lifelong learning is such a buzz. It's almost a worthless statement at this point. It's like overcooked to the point where, I'm a lifelong learner, but like what that really means. If you want to read some interesting stuff about it and run a little bit deeper than the bumper sticker level, like look up intellectual curiosity or intellectual humility. And that's where you'll find the academic papers that led to the pop culture term lifelong learning. Like, how does this actually work? And, I had the benefit of doing I mimicked, two very good telemark skiers this year. One at Rocky Mountain Training when we did that activity out there. And then I did it a few weeks later, which was a couple weeks ago now, at a Eastern Division National Ski Patrol outdoor emergency transportation conference that I've been fortunate to be involved with for the past 5 or so years. And I was with the tele crew and with that gang on Sunday, and I did that activity again. So I've had the opportunity to mimic two really good telemark skiers this season with that in mind. Like I want to figure out what they're doing and how I can use this. And I learned from both of those guys that I may be overcooking my stance. As I followed them, I noticed they were skiing in a higher stance, and they still had weight on the back foot. They were still using the back ski, but they were not as deep into a telemark stance as I was. And it made me very early on go, damn, am I burning out my legs sooner than necessary? And am I getting any benefit from this low tele stance? And so I started to play with that range. And the reason I bring that up is because we switched partners and everybody went through the exercise of trying to figure out how the person in front of them was moving. And just by saying, setting that debrief up, like, Dave, you're going to talk to Angelo about how and when you might want to ski more like him and vice versa, how and when I might want to ski more like you. That set such a different tone for the whole day versus this tone of correction. You know what I mean? That in both. So this happened at Rocky Mountain tele training too. The conversation throughout that day just got better and better and better and better, and felt really collaborative. And like a lot of progress was made in a short amount of time just by flipping the script on how you debrief activities. You know? So there is huge power in that. And if this is really a learning community and we're really lifelong learners, this other approach seems to be more pointed in that direction. What are you doing? How might I use that?
Yeah. Sharing, man. Share it back and forth.
Yep.
So, and people might ask, like, I thought you were going to talk about training, what you guys did at training. And like, this is my reflections on training. I know they are for you too, that, we went, and if people want the like lowdown, and most trainings, and you can chime in, I bet you most trainings across the country had a kind of a ski day, looking at making sure our ski performance was up to snuff. We were similar, given the activities in a similar way. I know some regions worked more on certain activities than others that they needed with their crew, but some were working on activities for this year, some were working on activities for next year in terms of what we looked like, to give clear communication visually with how we skied. And then on day 2, pretty much across the country, or some did it on day 1, we did our mock teaching that we watched coaching, we evaluated coaching. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we were into the assessment, but I took away more than just the assessment. I took away like, what is good teaching? We're evaluating it. It's on these assessment forms, the unified assessment forms. How do we train it? Like, what are the things we need to go out and help folks be able to do? Mm-hmm. How do we interpret the manuals, the standards, the performance guides, the unified assessment forms? And I think that this is kind of cool that you and I put it more in how the members hopefully see it versus us examiners, because they need to perceive it to put it in play. I had to put it in play last week. I went out and they could have scored me all week on the level 3 assessment form. I'm just a gold pin. You're a gold pin. There's no cert above that. And that's what they're assessing. They could have assessed me all week on that information. I'm trying to do the best I can to at least attain a 4 in each of them. Which I wouldn't doubt, which I know for a fact, even of self-evaluation. I wouldn't give, if I looked at the sessions, I would say for the week I did. But like on certain sessions, like a morning session, an afternoon, then I'd ski, the same group in the afternoon, make sure I'd up my game in a certain area because I was focused on something else for them. I wouldn't doubt the group would have said, well, you could have given more of this individual feedback, or maybe another demo of that, or maybe I could have had more time practicing it. I bet they would have given me lower than a 4. But in that 5-day span, what's the overall thing? And then I think that's the 30-minute thing. You got to practice it so that can you attain these things to a certain standard in 30 minutes that you said earlier.
Yeah, I think that's the real, in addition to developing so that you have the skill set to be successful, I think the real hard thing is how do you narrow it down to that time frame? And, less is more. Less is more.
Yep.
Thing is, coming with the 3x5 mentality, 3x5 note card mentality, if you were to do that and you wrote down 4 different activities and you're trying to get through these 4 different things in this linear progression, that can be very time consuming. And it's important to remember that at the teaching evaluation, it's the teaching that's being evaluated, like the teaching, the act of it, the art. We talked about how, that what would be a different way to go about it from a linear progression. And we talked a bit about classes versus lessons and how language can frame the way we act, we behave, and our tendency in this industry is we call, somebody comes and they purchase a chunk of time to learn to do this thing. We call that a lesson. Oh, Dave, you're here for your lesson. We call it a lesson. But what is a lesson, right? It's a discrete unit of time during which information is delivered. That's a lesson, right? Versus what if we flipped it in our brains and we called them classes? So what is a class consists of individual lessons, and how might that work? So if we started to call, people come to the desk. I've heard about this guy, Dave Capron, and his miraculous MA. I want to ski with this guy for an entire day. So they buy a class. They buy a day-long class with Dave, and that class could be thought of as consisting of lessons. So what's a lesson, right? So in a lesson, you deliver information, and we are explicit in our materials. PSIA we are explicit in that delivery is verbal and visual. It doesn't have proportions in there. It doesn't say 95% verbal and maybe a demo if you remember. And it doesn't say no talking whatsoever, only demos. Somewhere in between those is where it lives, right? You have to figure out what's appropriate for those people in front of you. But what's non-negotiable is in a lesson, you have to deliver information. So I might give you some verbal stuff. I might give you some demos from different vantage points. And then the next step in a lesson, like we've got to think back to the school days, you assign homework. So homework is about independent practice, right? You get people comfortable with the content to the point where they can practice by themselves, and you give them that chance. So that could be like I know we're not allowed to do pivot slips anymore, but let's say hockey stops now. We're going to replace pivot slips. So you're working with somebody on upper lower body separation and you give them some demos. We played with this at Rocky Mountain teletraining, given the demo before the description, the verbal description, how much better that worked. So, hey, watch me. I'm going to do these things and you figure out what I'm doing. And it's a hockey stop. Do you need me to explain? No, let me try it. And you get them to where they can do it, somewhat on their own. You say, okay, well, here's your homework. We're going to take 3 runs and I want you to do 8 hockey stops during each run. 4 each direction. You decide when and where you do them, when the timing is right. Just make sure you practice both sides. Ready, go. So here we go for our 3 runs. You may or may not be giving information. They're just practicing and processing at this point. But then at some point, you have to check that homework. So you're like, all right, you've had 3 runs. Let me look at the homework. Let me check it. So show me, I'm going to go down to the bottom. Show me 3 hockey stops in each direction. I'll tell you what I see going on. So they do that. And then you, as the trained eye, recognize, okay, we can move on to something else. We can take this somewhere else because these are great. Or you might say, well, we need this piece of remediation because every time you come to a hockey stop and you're facing the skiers left of the hill, you drift backwards about a ski length. So there's something going on that side. And so you work that out, right? But you, as a level 3, you've got 6 people in that group, and one dude is drifting back a ski length. Somebody else comes to a stop. They tip like this. Third person comes to a stop, and then 4 seconds later, there's a pole plant. So you've got all these individual things, and so you, as the teacher / coach, are gonna give each person individual feedback on that homework they did, and that determines your next step. So all of that just from changing what we call a lesson to what we change it to a class consisting of lessons with information delivery, homework, check the homework, then make your decision. That's like a recipe for adapting to what's going on in front of you.
Beautiful.
Right?
I got it recorded.
Yeah.
I wanted you did that description at training.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked you about it when I sent you a note that I wanted that on record. So I can mark that at what minute it is on this podcast and go to this. And I think it's simple, makes sense, and it gives you a great roadmap of teaching that it's not linear. It really allows you, it's kind of a linear progression, but not linear in the learning.
Yeah. So I looked up the structure of it because I didn't make this up. Like this is.
You can take credit. We won't tell anybody.
Well, okay. I'll take credit. It's called it's a literary structure called a branched narrative, and people our age remember choose your own adventure books. It's essentially setting your lesson up like a choose your own adventure book. And modern video games are set up like this too. I don't know anything about modern video games, but I did want to make sure this was applicable to people of various ages, and not all video games. Like if you think of the ones we came up with, like Pong and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, they were memorizable patterns. That's very much like teaching a progression. Like no matter what Donkey Kong does, that barrel's coming at this point in time. You know what I mean? Like
you knew it was coming, man. Here it comes.
Right. It's on fire. Like
I got to get past level 2.
So that's very different. That's more like sticking to your guns and teaching this progression, no matter what's happening in front of you, than something like a branch narrative where you're periodically, and ski runs and snowboard runs are set up like it's almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
You could think of each activity as a time to check in. You could do it every run. So you're periodically doing it. Cross country skiing, you do it at every intersection, every trail intersection. So it's kind of built, that idea of periodic check-ins are built into the structure of how our days play out very often. But a lot of times we don't take advantage of that to say, all right, well, let's see what's going on right now. And what do you want? Do you want more time to practice? Do you feel comfortable? Do you want me to look at it now and give you feedback? do you feel like you've got this licked and it's time to move on? Like you can have those conversations every time you check in. And then to your earlier point about people skills, there it is, there it is.
Yeah. And I think that's cool because that was where we were going to that. And you nailed it right there. I got it recorded. The branch narrative. I love it. And I remember you giving us that example of the adventure book where you pick your outcome, and video games are more today where they go, where back for us, it was that everything was like, map it out. You knew the mushroom was coming down, and Luigi and Mario, they're Mario brothers. You knew it was coming when it was coming. And some of the stuff still killed me, man. I knew it was coming and it still got me.
Right. Still terrible. And very different from like Dungeons and Dragons, which
yes.
accounts for the popular, I'd imagine not only the content, because fantasy and sci-fi is awesome, but like just the idea of the freedom in Dungeons and Dragons and that you could build your skill set. Like it couldn't be any more aligned with what we do on the hill. So we need to teach more like Dungeons and Dragons than Centipede or Pong.
Super cool, man. It's great. We get to do these chats. We got some stuff coming up. We're trying to line up the holiday season, Christmas, New Year's, and all that people are spending time with family. So we're trying to work on some stuff. Then we get rolling in January, man. We'll be on the road again, but we got a few things we're working on to get some cool podcasts out with the folks. Hopefully this one helps get people kind of thinking of where to go, what to do to start their training and our reflections on training, which were very educational. For me, even though we were very assessment oriented at training, it got my mind into, because we were assessing teaching and how we were using our skiing as visual communication. It definitely got me in a educational type mode to go out and coach and teach and try to be better at it.
Well, and I'm going to add on top of that too, the asking relevant questions. I think that when I think back onto the training this year versus last year, and more the idea that we're practicing examining how people teach, the questions, our tendency a couple years ago was to ask very tech oriented questions, which I don't think is a problem in limited amounts during a teaching exam, because to your point, like as somebody examining someone else's teaching performance, I want to know what it is that they observed that made them go down this route in the first place of choosing, well, not pivot slips, but something else like falling leaf, because we can't do pivot slips anymore. Capron said, no, listeners at home, never do pivot slips again. But like, what did you see? What information did you have that made you choose falling leaf for the group? Like, I want to know that. Yeah. But then it's harder for us to ask questions about the teaching itself. Well, how did in your mind, how did you adapt this? Because this is the stuff that we can't see happening. Right. This is somebody's thought process, like instructor decisions in that blue outer ring in the learning connection. You can't see the decisions. You can just see the actions that unfold. So I want to make sure I understand why you chose to do the falling leaf with direction change for half the group second run, but you kept these three just doing falling leaf. Like asking questions that get to the nitty gritty of why the teaching decisions were made. Like, and do you think your group, do you think everybody in your group has a physical sensation that they can connect with this performance change that you were going for, so they can self-coach after this session ends? Like having those, if you can answer yes to that, for like, I'm certain that everybody in my group has that because we identified it explicitly. If you're doing that, I don't see how you couldn't be making everything else fall in line with adapting to the individuals in front of you and connecting with them on a human level and having those conversations, because that's really that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Can they self-coach when you're done because they trust what you were doing with them? It made a technical change that they were interested in, and you taught it in such a way that they understood it. Boom, boom, boom. Right?
I love it.
And that all comes from a fleshed out debrief that focuses on self-coaching versus just, oh, here's what we did. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Or it's an afterthought and doesn't get mentioned at all.
Yep. That's the gig, baby. I love it. And I got to ask you, because I'm looking behind me,
Yep.
all of Polly's artwork up here.
Yeah.
What you haven't had a lot of time,
No.
but I know you love doing artwork and stuff. It's got to be some project you have on the computer, you have in your mind, like a t-shirt, something that Angela has like, God, I have not had time to do that. Is there something brewing?
Well, I've done 3 pieces in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Actually 4 pieces. One is a holiday gift that has to remain a surprise until tomorrow.
Yep.
I did that. I did a piece for Emily Spiker, and I know Emily is also a listener. Yep. Congrats to Emily for Pennsylvania Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame inductee. Yes. I made a piece for Emily to celebrate her achievement. I did a piece and donated it to the Eastern Academy auction that happened last week. And most recently, and I'm so glad you brought this up because I wanted to put in a plug earlier. I just finished and gave to the dudes that run the Telepalooza event at Seven Springs. It's coming up here the weekend of January 10. It's 10, 11 or 9, 10, whatever the weekend coming up is, week and a half into January. Telepalooza 2026 at Seven Springs, PA. Last year on Saturday, 70 telemark skiers, national team members, Jim Shaw, Keith Rodney. I heard Charlie MacArthur's going to be there this year. I asked the guys who organize it, Jay and Kurt, how many are you hoping to get this year? And they said 100. Nice. So it's growing. And I just did the design, the t-shirt design for that one yesterday. And I know that went to the printer yesterday. So I have been cooking up a little bit of artwork. I'm trying to make sure I prioritize it.
Cool. Because I know you want to have some of that keeps you grounded, gives you a little space to be creative and take it away from all the work you're doing.
Yep.
So,
but everybody needs that.
Yeah, you need a little out once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I know. So it's cool to see all the art, man. There's some pretty artistic folks on our ed staff. Sue Kramer with her pottery. Yeah. Mr. Matt Boyd doing all his stuff there and that cool shot ski.
Yeah.
That he had, and there's quite a bit of other stuff on there. So, they're gonna have to expand that auction to have it more than just at or right when Eastern Academy hits. We could make that bigger.
I think you just made the office staff more busy. I'm not going to chime in on that
one. We'll just ditch it off Pam Green. Pam, you got to do that, maybe twice a year now. And Pam would be like, what?
No, it's cool because that money, a lot of that money or all that money went to the Education Foundation, right? So it's nice to be able to donate to a cause like that.
Yeah, gets folks out there that need a helping hand to get out and do some more education, go to some educational event, helping them further their education for certification or accreditation for some of our kids' stuff or freestyle or just to learn something, man, to go to something that's fun and grow something to go back and share with your students.
Go learn.
We do have all those pins and accreditations and we have to have those standards, but sometimes it's just fun to go to an event and learn something. Like last week.
I'll throw this out and then we can be done. But because I hear the cadence happening.
It's coming.
IQ is mutable. IQ can change.
Yep.
Throughout somebody's life, and that's a questionable number anyway because it measures what verbal and math, and of course, there's much more to intelligence than just words and numbers. But anyway, it's a metric that our school system uses, but it is not written in stone. It can change throughout somebody's life. And so the reason I bring that up is because of what I said earlier. I do believe personally, many, many, many of our people in our association get the pin before they've grown fully into it. And that's really the noble part of it, it's great to be a registered member, to be a registered member until you think there's nothing more you could possibly see at the level 1 level, and then go take that exam. Just kill it. Just completely crush it because you're so prepared, and then treat the rest of it that way. You can raise your skiing or snowboarding IQ And then those assessments become a matter of course, not a hurdle or a roadblock, you know?
Yep. Education's a gig, man.
Yep.
Learn.
What else?
It's hard to not learn when we're doing stuff.
You can't not learn. Brain just learns.
Yep. You know? It just happens. But that's why it's fun doing the podcast. Mm-hmm. Thanks for everybody listening. At least, I don't know, 5 of them. Do you think we got 5 listeners now?
I don't know, maybe 6. That'd be cool.
Maybe 6, you know. Maybe we'll get towards we can count on 2 hands. I don't know. But it's been super fun and tons of support from so many folks to keep it going that energizes us, you know, gets us, you know, motivated to do some stuff when it helps some folks out there, guides them when it's just fun, entertaining.
It's just fun.
That kind of stuff.
And we didn't mention, if you're looking to go into the archives, listen to the one with Terry Barber. That was one of my favorites too. Murmur. Yeah. So many.
Murmur and Terry,
Porter, Wayne Wong. Too many people. Yeah.
It's super. It's cool to look at that library. I mean, and we got to do this one story before I sign out. That Ray Gilmore.
Yeah.
He's like binge listening and watching right now. So he was on, which we didn't know, you and I can't remember, were we at management seminar, I think? And he texted us. He's got a hold of us somehow, the 2 of us. Mm. And we didn't know it. He's like, hey, I listened to the podcast and da-da-da. He was mentioning something specific, like an exact comment. And I had no idea. And then I think you went back to him on the thread and said something. He came back.
It was Keith Rodney.
Was it Rodney? I thought it was Ray.
No, it was Keith, because we get this rando text from Keith. Yeah. And it was just like the answer to a question, and then ha 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 ha. And I text him like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just catching up on a podcast from June or something." I'm like, I can't remember what I had for breakfast today, and you're
It's like, I don't have every single one memorized of every single. It was like, what the hell? I didn't know what he was talking about either. I'm like, what is this?
I try to block him out as soon as we hit end.
And when he mentioned podcast, I'm thinking last podcast. We just did one. We did one with Pete and Eric Shackleton. And I'm going, what's he talking about now? And it's like, he was back in June or last March or I don't know.
But thanks for listening, Keith.
Yeah, we do enjoy it. But thanks, everybody. Super fun. We enjoy it here. This is the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. Have a great holiday season, and I hope I see you all on snow.